Fantasy football late round lottery tickets, guys going outside the top 120 picks overall that could absolutely hit in 2026. I'm going to start off with some new names, some new fresh names that we have not talked about this offseason. And then I'm going to finish up with some of our old faithfuls that I've been going on and on about this offseason. Let's go ahead and dive right in. I have spent a lot of time this offseason talking about Quentin Johnston, and I want to give a little love to another Charger that I think is absolutely worthy of a pick. Tre Harris. The Chargers leaned heavily on Keenan Allen last season, oddly enough. Keenan Allen was actually the Chargers' target leader last season. Yeah, overall, that was definitely more tilted towards the beginning of the season. Literally 64 of those targets were within the first 7 games of the season, and 13 of them came in the final game where the Chargers sat their starters. Harris never really found his footing last season because while the Chargers did eventually reduce Keenan Allen's workload a bit in the back half of the season, there still wasn't enough volume for Harris to be fantasy relevant. And then the Chargers were also struggling in their pass game, dealing with the injuries to the offensive line. But the Chargers offense will be much healthier in 2026. They will have a brand new scheme that will push more volume. For 3 straight years, we have seen reduced pass volume for Justin Herbert. It is not right. Very peculiar for a guy who literally thrived in his first 3 seasons of his career with around 600 attempts or above significantly every single season. If the Chargers offense can bounce back to what it should have been operating, right, it can support 3 pass catchers very easily. Now, I'm a firm believer that the first 2 looks will be Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston, right? But the third look is up for grabs. It could be Tre Harris. It could be Aronde Gadsden. Harris would also need to contend with new rookie receiver Brennan Thompson. So none of this is a lot, for sure. Hence why Harris has an overall ranking of 171 and his wide receiver 66 around the likes of Kayshon Boutte and Trey Tucker. But once you get into that range, you want to target guys in high volume offenses that will have low end flex appeal. But more than anything, have the ability and the talent to step into a larger role if one of the lead receivers go down, and Tre Harris absolutely fits those qualifications. Let's talk about DeJon Stribbling. I have talked a lot about the fact that I like Ricky Pearsall. That has not changed. I think he is an excellent value pick because of the fact that he will see the easier coverage with Mike Evans on the team, and he can benefit in the same way Emeka Egbuka did early on in 2025. But we've also talked about how injuries have continued to plague him, right? So if Ricky continues to be Ricky and he can't stay healthy, then you have Mike Evans, who has had back-to-back seasons with hamstring issues at the ripe age of 32, 33 in a couple of months. Then you have George Kittle coming off of an Achilles injury at the same age as Mike Evans. Then you have Christian McCaffrey coming off the heaviest workload of his entire career at 30 years old. I mean, technically speaking, DeJon Stribbling has about the cleanest path to being the first look in a highly effective offense as you can get for a guy being ranked outside the top 200 overall. Yeah, I would absolutely be trying to walk away with Stribbling at the end of all of your fantasy drafts because it can happen. I mean, am I a big fan of his? No, I'm not a truther. And I think that he is, quite frankly, a direct replacement for Jawan Jennings. And ultimately, I don't think that he'll be the wide receiver one of this offense if everybody is healthy, right? Despite what draft capital says, but opportunity is opportunity, and this team stays injured. So this man could very well get the opportunity there real quick. And if he's able to step up when he is inevitably called upon to do so this season, it would be a massive win for your fantasy team. As much as I love Jalen Coker, I haven't actually talked about him this offseason. I don't even think I did a congratulations video for his contract, so that's bad on my part. So consider this my official stamp of approval for targeting Jalen Coker in fantasy drafts. I know I have talked about my concerns that the pass volume will continue to be an issue for the Panthers, and that I am uncomfortable with Tetairoa McMillan at his current ranking. I do trust McMillan will hit 1,000 yards again, right? But I'm just concerned that the volume for Bryce Young won't jump enough for him to really get the high ceiling that he would need compared to the other receivers being drafted around him. That's the only issue. But we don't have to worry about that with Jalen Coker because you are drafting him in double-digit rounds. Yay! Coker got the contract because he has shown significant upside anytime he's been on the field. The only problem is he just can't stay on the field. These poor injury-plagued guys. But his ADP is low enough to take that risk because he is absolutely the wide receiver 2 on that team. And because the scheme doesn't really heavily utilize tight end as a prominent pass catcher, and I don't think that's going to change, we've seen that consistently with Dave Canales, that means that Coker is guaranteed to be the second look behind McMillan. And that's a massive gap in ADP between him and Teodoro McMillan. And it's a big value advantage, quite possibly one of the biggest gaps that we have between a clear wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 1 that is, factually going to be the first and second look on their team. The Panthers drafted Chris Brazzell, who I would expect to compete with Xavier Legette's role. Coker, his role is predominantly in the slot, but he's versatile. He plays on the outside as well. So despite playing in the slot, he's not at the mercy of being one of those guys that just gets the ball literally like 3 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, like you see with a lot of other smaller slot guys. Coker has a very healthy ADOT of 10 yards, just 2 yards less than Teodoro McMillan, and he's a quarterback's dream. He is extremely reliable in terms of his hands. Maybe I'm gushing about him at this point, but I am a true believer. I believe that he gives you a day one flex value at the fraction of the cost that you got to pay for other flex options. Now, this one is very interesting. Jayden Higgins definitely separated himself from the remaining receiving options, and his role opposite of Nico Collins on the outside seems very secure. The Texans moved on from Christian Kirk, and Jalen Noel should step into his role in the slot. But the problem comes when you look at what happens with this offense if Tank Dell returns, because it sounds like the Texans are optimistic that this could finally be the time that they're able to get him back on the field. Now, most people would naturally think, oh, well, Dell will just replace Noel, right? No, because Dell has never really been used as a slot receiver at any point with the Texans. Now, things could change, especially now that, there was a significant injury. Maybe his capabilities have changed. I don't know. We'll see. But for the most part, right, his rookie season, he and Nico Collins anchored the outside with Robert Woods in the slot. The next season, Stefon Diggs came in. They put Stefon Diggs in the slot. They seem very determined to have Dell on the outside. That's where he thrives. So technically speaking, Dell and Higgins, despite the fact that they are nowhere near each other in size, right, are maybe actually the real threat to each other's workload. Now, the Texans are very optimistic, again, that Dell can return this season. We'll have to see him at training camp. But again, that was one nasty injury, one of the nastiest injuries we've ever seen. And for a tiny player that relies on speed, I don't know. I'm skeptical, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that he can return. But if I had to guess, they will take a more cautious approach and not throw him out there at a heavy workload. I think Higgins' ADP is low enough to the point where I am willing to take that risk of the possibility of a Tank Dell return. The Texans don't have to push aggressive pass volume because their defense is so good, but they do have to make a leap to push to be an actual contender again. They have to get more volume from CJ Stroud. And we do know that CJ Stroud can make two very usable fantasy receivers work together. We saw the evidence. We just need to get him back on track. So we need to monitor how Dell's return is looking, but if he is not pushed back into a significant role and they try to be very cautious, Higgins stands to make a significant enough leap in terms of fantasy football this season if CJ Stroud can work things out behind that offensive line. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings. As of right now, my advice is to target Jordan Mason, but be flexible on this because DeMond Claiborne could actually be the one that we want. Aaron Jones is the presumed RB1. Makes sense. I'm not arguing with that because he is the most talented back on roster. But he is very old, unfortunately. Now, all running back ages are not created equal. Derrick Henry can do whatever Derrick Henry wants at any single age. But it's a little bit different with Aaron Jones, right? Now, just because you see regression in an older back does not necessarily mean that it was age-related, but I do think that's the case with Aaron Jones. A 31-year-old running back who physically cannot handle a traditional lead back workload, who quite literally touched the ball 255 times in 2024, and that was the tipping point for being too much pressure on his body, resulting in a very highly ineffective 2025 season with just 132 attempts in 12 games with 3 total touchdowns and by far the worst yards per carry in his entire career. Yeah, if I'm a bettor, and I am, I would bet this man does not make it through the season. And if by a miracle he does, it is because they had a shift in truly splitting the workload to him way down in single digit carries and mainly focusing on him having receiving work, right? That's a mouthful to say that the odds are good that someone else leads this backfield from a fantasy perspective this year. And the offense should theoretically bounce back with Kyler Murray at the helm, because I know for a fact he's not worse than JJ McCarthy. Mason is the most logical answer here. Now, Mason unfortunately isn't a prolific receiving back, but he doesn't have stone hands, right? He can manage a check down. Now, he's not going anywhere with it, unfortunately, but he can manage it. Now, he would logically fit in tandem with Jones because that's what they did last year, right? In terms of Jones being the third down back, Mason being the early down and goal line back. And if Kyler can make this a more effective offense and provide more goal line opportunities, this can work based off what they did last year for Jordan Mason, right? Especially if we see a little bit of a downtick in production from Aaron Jones. Now let's talk about Claiborne. The path for Claiborne only exists if Aaron Jones goes down. He is 5'9", 190. But again, I don't size discriminate on smaller backs. You know I love Devon Achane. But again, the problem here is that it does require Aaron Jones to go down for him. But if that path does arise, what can happen is that he will get on the field and he could just outplay Mason and earn the bulk of the workload. Again, while he is a smaller back, theoretically, he can be a 3-down back, and he's just a little bit on the smaller side. So keep your eye on him throughout the upcoming training camp to see how confident the Vikings feel in him and see if he is in fact the odds-on RB3, if everything is good, set, and solid. Stash him on your bench, especially in deeper leagues. See what comes of it. Now, Christian Watson is the wide receiver one, period. The Packers made that very clear when they handed over a very, we enjoy having you around contract to Jayden Reed, and then turned around giving Christian Watson the bag, right? They made things very clear. Now, those contracts might make you assume that Golden is the odd man out here, right? But the reality is that he has a shot to be very fantasy relevant this season. Because while Watson is definitely the wide receiver one, we would be remiss to ignore the fact that he is maxed out at just over 50 targets in the past 3 seasons, with his career high being 66 in his rookie season, and he is yet to play a fully healthy season. So while I can confidently say that we would probably get 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns plus maybe on a full season for him, good production, that's a theory that has not yet been proven, right? And that's what the Packers are hoping as well. But we don't know if that can actually happen, if he can actually stay on the field. And Jayden Reed has played 2 healthy seasons, and he is maxed out at 64 receptions on 94 targets for 8 touchdowns, which is solid, but that's not a wide receiver 1 quality. Technically, that's more of a high-end wide receiver 3, right? Golden had his own health issues last season, so he is not immune to this, and his rookie season was definitely underwhelming compared to the rookie seasons of those other 2 receivers, but there's zero reason why he can't take the exit specifically of Romeo Doubs and get on the field consistently and just flat out showcase as one of the most reliable receivers on the field, because drops have been an issue for the Packers receiving core, and reliability and solid hands is literally Golden's best selling point. If Watson actually plays a full healthy season, we're likely looking at a low-end wide receiver 2 being the very best that we could ask for, given the Packers are a very balanced offense. But if Watson continues to do Watson things, Golden could turn into a diamond in the rough in fantasy. Late round running backs are ugly this year, to say the least. I advise you to shore up your bench spots before you get into this range, but if you are looking for a late round running back, Marshawn Lloyd makes a ton of sense. Lloyd right now is RB 67 in ECR. Now, I think that might have to do with people maybe not clocking in that Lloyd is 100% the direct handcuff to Josh Jacobs. And there is no logical reason that a handcuff in an offense that does factually rely on a third down back should go that far back. Now, I get it, right? Because Lloyd is heading into his 3rd season and he has yet to prove that he can actually stay on the field. As much as we talk about Jonathon Brooks' injury risk, they were drafted the same year, and Brooks, ironically, has more career carries than Marshawn Lloyd, which is literally just 9 carries for Brooks. So that's kind of crazy there, right? So understandable why no one is really buying into Marshawn Lloyd. But the only competition that Lloyd has on the Packers roster is Chris Brooks, who has had plenty of opportunities, and he's still never been more than the occasional change of pace back. Lloyd definitely has priority over him. If he can stay healthy, Lloyd is an excellent bench stash. We talked about Josh Jacobs' legal issues on my live show. It doesn't appear, right, and things could always change, but it doesn't appear that this is something that's going to affect his 2026 status. So we're still treating Jacobs as the lead back for this season. And I do like Jacobs for a bounce back season after a down season in 2025. He was still very effective with many top 10 weeks before he got injured, and he was a touchdown machine. I do think he will bounce back just fine, but in the event that this was actually age, and I don't think it was, but in the event that it was age, and age starts to take a hold of him, you will be glad that you stashed Marshawn Lloyd. Now let's talk about guys that I've talked about in recent videos. I will link the videos in the description where I go into more depth on these guys, or maybe I'll be smart enough to figure out how to make it appear in the right-hand corner of the screen. We'll see. Denzel Boston. Yes, it is Cleveland. It is a very crowded offense, ironically now, with the additions they made at pass catcher, but his talent is very real. Cleveland reworked the offensive line. They did lose one of their key linemen, but they made significant additions that should help the quarterback situation, whoever it may be. Boston has the talent to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. Chig Okonkwo. Brandon Ayuk is practically begging to be a Commander at this point. It's kind of sad, but we'll see. But for now, Washington's offense lacks a wide receiver 2. They need someone to step up. The roster has mediocre talent, unfortunately, past Terry McLaurin at wide receiver. And Washington could simply opt to turn to the tight end position to be the second look in the offense. Chig lacked opportunities in Tennessee, but we are hearing great feedback about him in Washington. Keep your eye on this one for sure. Then Ted Hurst and Jalen McMillan. I talked about this. Emeka Egbuka is the wide receiver 1. Chris Godwin will start off the season as a starter primarily in the slot, most likely. And the most likely scenario is that Ted Hurst is a potential day 1 starter as the X receiver in this offense. I do like Jalen McMillan as well because he's shown massive upside when he's been given the opportunity, but he must push Chris Godwin out of the way. Now, considering that Godwin has struggled to play full seasons now, and he is very old, unfortunately, there is a good chance that he will hit a wall or get injured again, and McMillan could be the starter by mid-year. And Jonathon Brooks, really simple on Jonathon Brooks. We know that Chuba Hubbard is the lead back, but the Panthers want to get Jonathon Brooks on the field immediately. They said so, right? And if he's healthy, he will be on the field early as a change of pace back, and all he has to do is just perform better than Chuba, and they will give him a shot to be the lead back. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can find me across all social media platforms at It's Tara Time. I am also live every Wednesday on YouTube at 8 p.m. EST, so make sure that you stop by and chat. It is always a good time. You can ask me any questions that you want. You can also subscribe to my Substack if you want to support me another way. And if you are looking for new fantasy football tools in 2026, look at Player Profiler. You can use my promo code TARA for 25% off at Player Profiler.